Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your lunch and are ready for a stimulating afternoon. And it couldn't begin with a better guest speaker. Joining me on stage now for a chat about the current UK political scene is Iain Anderson. Iain will be known to many of you. He's the founder and the executive chairman at H Advisors Cicero. He's a regular speaker at Protection Review events. But most importantly, of course, like me, he's a fellow Gooner. And so we're going to spend 20 minutes talking about our prospects. Oh, no, sorry, it's the wrong script. Iain, thank you very much for joining us today. You're very welcome.
But last night was fantastic,
It was fantastic, yeah.
It was very, very good.
Thank you. It's probably an understatement to say it's been a busy year in UK politics. And it looks like we've got an election due next year. Overall, how would you summarise the current political environment in the UK?
Explosive?
Yeah.
Might be a way to say. Look, I mean, we're sitting, Peter, with pretty much calcifying UK opinion polls, right? The government tries a relaunch. It tickles up in the polls by about 3 or 4 points, and then it sort of slumps back down to what I think is becoming, certainly in this environment, the Conservatives' sort of bedrock level of about 25%. Labour is sticking broadly on early to mid 40s. So, you look at poll of polls, and it's between about 16 and 20 points, yeah? So why is it explosive? Well, it's been explosive because of the personalities. I mean, 7 chancellors, da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da. You're saying goodbye to people 5 minutes after you've said hello to them, which is it's a real problem from the perspective of how you talk to government, or you have settled policy on issues, or you can drive anything forward. And look, inevitably, given that kind of calcifying number at the minute, and it's only going to be an exogenous shock, I think, that changes the number between now and October. So there we go. That's my first prediction. I still think, when all is said and done, unless there's an accidental general election, we're sticking with all of this going on until October next year. The weight of time is being spent on talking to the Labour Party.
Fine. Thank you. You've moved seamlessly on into the area I want to cover next. You mentioned the very significant leads that consistently the Labour are having in the opinion polls. And when you think we might have an election, I suppose it is probably necessary for Sunak to push the election date out as long as possible, just in the hope that something turns up. But what sort of overall majority would you think that Labour might be looking at, given the landslide that they faced in a few years ago?
So, look, if you talk to people in the Labour Party right now, they use the same language that the Blairite and the Brownite Party used to use in the mid-90s. So that, the idea of Operation Ming Vase, carry the vase over the finishing line and don't drop the damn thing, yeah? And if we're going to see opinion polls that continue to give Labour this sort of lead, combined with, and I think there is quite a bit of this going on that some of the pollsters are certainly unable to unearth right now, stay-at-home Tories, combined with a level of support for Reform UK, that's the the Richard Tice party, not yet the Nigel Farage party, but stand by for that when he bounces out of the jungle, whenever that's to be. I don't know if anyone's voting in that particular democratic endeavour right now, but Reform is currently polling 9 to 10 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, and most of that, the vast majority of that, is taking votes away from the blue team, not the red team. So you add all that up, and I think, at the moment, we're looking at a very good working majority, if not a very, very sizable majority for Labour.
And that would certainly give them a full term in Parliament.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
But the thing to add that we need to get used to a bit is there is the degree of volatility in our politics now is huge. I will always vote the same way that my parents voted is gone for the vast majority of the electorate. And the impact of social, the impact of digital, the impact of single issue campaigning as well, the impact of referenda across our politics just means that you have much, much greater volatility. So people were saying back in 2019, Boris Johnson was good for a decade. Well, he was good for about 6 months.
Right.
Now, to be fair, COVID got in the way. He's answering those questions not far away from here today. But the old idea, the settled idea that volatility in the electorate was about 25% of the British electorate is now closer to 50 to 55% of the British electorate.
So that will be a caveat. Thank you. Now, after supporting the Tories for many years, you told the industry early in the year that you were switching to Labour. Why did you do that, and why this year?
So I've been a Conservative for 40 years, I think, as you know, other people in this room. The Financial Times asked me this question as well when I did what I did. And you could say, yeah, well, there's an election approaching, there's a 20-point gap, he runs a lobbying business, he can smell the wind. But I could have done exactly the same thing in 97, in 96 and 97. But I didn't, because I thought that, frankly, John Major and Ken Clarke, the person I used to work with, were different sorts of politicians. Not many people know this, I suppose, about me, Peter, but the most important thing in my political life, beyond my business life, is the union. And I came to the conclusion before one gets into how well the country is run right now or not, the culture war stuff and whether or not that's good or bad for us, where public services are right now, whether or not we're sorting social care. I came to the conclusion that Labour doing well is good for keeping the country together. And that's the most important thing for me before we then look at all those, all those other issues.
And can you tell us what you're doing with Labour at the moment?
So, Johnny Reynolds, the Labour Shadow Business Secretary, has asked me to do a review of business to government relations. So I'm sort of actively in the middle of that at the moment. This piece of work is going to report both to him, but also to, I think as people in this room know, that Keir Starmer's recruited Sue Gray to do a preparation for government piece of work, an architecture for government piece of work. And I'm out and about seeing businesses, large and small, domestics and inbound, every part of the economy that I can possibly touch, Peter, so not just financial services, to talk to people about what would be a better way of creating business and government conversations. So to give you a little bit of a sort of flavour of the kind of things I'm thinking about, so, the simple bit is stop government appointments by WhatsApp. Stop government appointments by people you know, and start government appointments by people who are genuinely expert in their field. So that one's definitely coming out the other end. But I'm thinking as well about, in a digital world, actually recreating a proper consultative process. You might even call it bringing back green papers, but in a digital world, so that it's a participative conversation. I'm thinking about things like, and I've discovered along the way, that a prime minister, a chancellor, and a business secretary at the moment don't really sit down with the systemic regulators, and there are systemic regulators in this industry, there are systemic regulators around competition and more widely. And why don't they do that? They don't do that because Sir Humphrey turns around and says, well, you couldn't possibly be seen to be sitting down with the regulators, right? And I think you can construct a way for government to talk to the regulators that have such a key impact on our economy, and particularly since the devolution of an awful lot of regulation post-2016 directly to the regulators. I think you can construct a terms of reference, you can construct a remit which allows a government and our regulatory system to have a dialogue, not about Activision, not about a specific takeover deal, not about a specific policy, but about what the landscape for doing business, what the landscape for consumers looks like in our country. And that's not happening at the moment.
Fine, thank you. We've got a room full of industry leaders, financial advisors, people with a great interest in financial services here. So if we do see a Labour government next year, what should they prepare for? And would you see many changes coming in the financial sector?
So, I say this as me, not because of any the sort of privy knowledge, but I'd always thought that it was going to be very, very, very tempting for an incoming government, just as we saw in 97 with the creation of the FSA, and then we saw in 2010 with the creation of FCA and PRA in this sector. Very tempting for incoming government to blame what's just happened on the previous regulatory settlement and to then go and create a new one. I am not in any way, shape or form getting that sense from Labour, but and I have written about this before, I am getting the sense, though, that there's a Labour government's going to be more inclined to give more firepower to conduct and perhaps a bit more of a, shall we say, a bit more of an opportunity on the prudential side, on the wholesale side, to allow firms to invest, right? I'm not going to say, weakening caveat emptor, because nobody knows what it means anymore. But in an environment where an incoming government needs inward investment, and my goodness, we need inward investment, I think that's the sort of shape, more power to conduct, a little bit more flexibility on the wholesale side that I'm sort of gearing up for. I mean, the thing also that Labour have yet to talk through and talk up, and what I would say to everybody in this room is that, believe you me, there is still an opportunity to take ideas to an incoming government. Unlike 1995 and 1996, where the economic environment was, well, considerably different to the economic environment that we're currently in. And Blair and Brown weren't really very lobbyable by the time it got to 96. I mean, their plan to give the Bank of England independence and various other things was already settled. Because of the scale of the fiscal challenge, there's still plenty of scope, plenty of opportunity to lay ideas on the table.
Thank you. We can switch to a returning superstar. Lord Cameron is somewhat unexpectedly back in government. If I could ask you a couple of things about him. What do you make of that? And is it feasible that he could return as leader of the Tories?
Well, anything's possible. Everybody was completely, the whole Westminster system was completely and utterly shocked when he climbed out of that car in Downing Street the other day.
Yeah.
And he's played the Prime Minister a blinder, if you ask me. You know, the rehabilitation of Dave before our eyes. There he is on the world stage again. I think he's gone to Washington today. Now, look, there's good in that. There is good in that. In that, you know, a former Prime Minister rocking up in global capitals has a completely different stature to, you know, the 7th or 8th Foreign Secretary this week problem that we've been going through. Yeah, so that is good. Does it change the opinion polls? Does it change the perception of Britain? I'm a bit wary of whether or not it does. But certainly having another pair of eyes around the cabinet table that does have expertise is useful. Future leader of the Conservative Party, well, now he's in the House of Lords, so unless the Conservative Party is about to completely flip our constitution, anything's possible. I think it unlikely.
What do you think will happen to the Tories and to Sunak should they lose as predicted? Is that the end for Rishi?
After 40 years of this, so when I tried to get Ken Clarke elected, in the middle time I tried to do that, Ken, and he lost about 60-40 to Ian Duncan Smith. That went well, didn't it? And Ken, at the time, at the wake that we had, when everybody was getting ridiculously drunk, as political parties tend to, I remember him saying to the group, he said, stick in and fight. Almost a kind of Gates-Skillian fight, and fight again. I genuinely hope I'm wrong about this, because I think we need a powerful opposition party to be able to hold a government to account. But where the Conservative Party's got itself to now, the most effective political party in the Western world, bar none. I've got a lot of trepidation as to quite what happens next, because I think what may be left are people that want to take it off to the extreme. Now, the same thing you could have said 4 years ago for the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn, but I think there's a difference. So both under Jeremy Corbyn, but under Neil Kinnock too, when Neil Kinnock was fighting the extreme left, people like Roy Hattersley stayed. Okay, the SDP was created, but a lot of the centre-right of the Labour Party stayed. Under Jeremy Corbyn, Keir stayed, Rachel stayed, Johnny stayed. The problem I think we've got, the modern Conservative Party's got right now, is that an awful lot of people have been either ejected from the Conservative Party, thank you, Dominic Cummings, or have just decided to walk. And therefore they won't take part in any future leadership election. And that does worry me.
Final question. We're coming to the end of what's been a fascinating session, and I'm really asking you to put on sort of a reverse hat. What could go wrong for Labour now? What could lose them the election? With you on their side, I can't see that's going to happen, but...
No, I mean, so I kind of, you know, it's some sort of exogenous shock, either internally I can't see it economically. Clearly, we're sitting having this conversation against the backdrop of, two major conflicts taking place. And electorates at times of stress around national security and global security tend to hang on to what they have. I still don't think that keeps the Conservative Party in power, because all the polling absolutely does take us to cost of living being primus inter pares in terms of how people think. But no, I think the only thing that now stops it is now some form of exogenous shock.
Thank you. So could we expect to see you in a cabinet post in autumn? No.
I'm loving what I'm doing. It's quite fun being able to do this.
Fabulous. It's been great fun to have you here. Thank you very, very much indeed, Iain. Could we give Iain a round of applause? Thank you.
Thank you.
That's brilliant, mate. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Lovely.